Hi, I'm Brad Sarin, Superintendent of the Sun Prairie Area School District, here with Dr. Chris Sadler to present Operational Expectation 4, Personnel Administration, which covers the 2022-2023 school year. As we present this, it's the 2023-2024 school year, and you're monitoring last year. So operational expectation 4 is an operational expectation from the Board of Education that states that the superintendent shall assure the recruitment, employment, development, evaluation, and compensation of district employees in a manner necessary to enable the district to achieve its results policies. Specifically, operational expectation 4 is focused on human resource processes related to the recruitment, hiring, development, retention, support of employees in the Sun Prairie Area School District. Today, we are advancing a monitoring report that is compliant with exceptions noted. For more detail, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Chris Sadler to go over the details of the monitoring report. Chris?
Thanks, Brad. So what I'm going to talk about today is I'll detail the OE4 report and what it actually has in it. I know that there's 30 measures within this report. So the report itself, I won't go through every single measure. I'm going to highlight some of the things from 2022-23, talk about a measure that was compliant with exceptions, and then a couple measures, 2 measures that were non-compliant. So as you can see on the screen right now, we have, yes, the OE4 has 30 measures total in it. 27 of those measures are in compliance with school board expectations. There was 1 measure that was compliant with exceptions, and that was the measure from OE 4.1, measure 2, which is 90% of benefit eligible employees in good standing are retained by the district, and each employee group employees of color. I'm going to explain why that's compliant with exceptions in just a few slides. And then there was 2 measures that were non-compliant around evaluations, which are in 4.9, measure 3 and 4, around administrative support and support staff, or support personnel, which are our hourly staff. The goal is 100% of evaluations are completed there. We did not meet the board expectation of 100%, and I'll talk about that in a few slides as well. So just some highlights of compliant measures. We did increase the percentage of staff diversity, racial diversity from 14.2% employees of color to 15% employees of color. And you can see that one of our main measures for focusing on increasing our staff diversity for our to match our student and staff demographics is monitoring our applicants. Now these are self-identified in our application process, but that increased from 21.3% to 30% of people of color applying to positions in our district. 90% of our employees in good standing are retained by the district in general. And then the overall percentage, which is something that was a very prideful moment for our district in 22-23, is that the survey question to employees of all things considered the district is a good place to work. The amount of agreeing statements to that went from 62.5% in 2021-22 to 85.3% in 22-23. And then the average amount of professional development hours increased in each employee group. And then all new employees hired participated in school and department new employee orientation. And we put into place a new strategy called Kickstart, which is the onboarding structure for hourly employees, and began implementation throughout the summer of 2023 and then into the fall of 2023-24 school year. Now, these are some narrative parts of strategies, but I'm just going to kind of hit the high points of these because these are reasons that some of those compliance measures moved significantly, especially around all things considered this is a good place to work. So on our end in human resources, we continue to streamline processes using frontline platforms. One specifically was human resources management system, which ties all of our other systems together so it's seamless and people aren't having to navigate between systems to update documents. The other pieces that we've done is we continue to expand our Grow Your Own program. We've made more partnerships with different certification programs and universities, and also continue to work with people that are not completed with their bachelor's degree and kind of working with a different group of our employees in that way, because in the past it was only for employees that had a bachelor's degree or higher. We partners with the City of Sun Prairie to continually improve our offerings through our employee wellness clinic. And this year we added a behavioral health coach in collaboration with the city And this was all based off of data from employees saying that this was the main reason that many of our appointments were made around behavioral health. And then finally, a big movement in compensation is we did collaborate with a professional educator work group to create a new compensation structure that was approved by the school board for the 23-24 school year back in the spring of 23. This allows us to be competitive with neighboring school districts and honor the professional educators that we have in our school district right now. So compliance with exceptions measure. So I had alluded to this earlier, our 4.1 measure 2, around 90% of our employees being retained that are in good standing and are benefit eligible. So our overall percentage of 90% was accomplished. There was just 2 small subgroups within that, which also is part of this goal, that did not hit the 90%, and that's our support staff and employees of color. Had retention rates of 87 and 88% respectively. So not far off 90%, but we didn't get there. So that's why it's compliant with exceptions. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're moving forward with to address that. On to the non-compliant measures. Again, we did not hit our mark for administrative support and support staff or hourly staff members hitting the 100% of employees on cycle to be evaluated. So for our administrative support, we had 84.6, and then for our support staff, it was 93.2. So we did not meet our 100% goal there. So to address first the areas of compliance with exceptions around retention, you can see some of the strategies there, but the main focus really is around 2 pieces. One is onboarding. What we've noticed is with our support staff, that is our highest percentage employee group with employees of color. So we knew that when we think about why those 2 groups were below 90% is because they're actually paired a lot together. So what we did this for 23-24 based on that data is we really put a lot of effort into something called SP Kickstart, which is really our onboarding for our hourly staff, which again, we know is our highest percentage of employees of color. We heard through stay interviews and exit interviews that our onboarding process in the past was not supportive and it didn't create the welcoming environment we had. So that means people would kind of come into our system and then leave right after coming into our system because they didn't feel prepared for the job they had. And the welcoming part, which is so important to new employees and our employees of color, we wanted to make sure they were welcomed. So we created a new onboarding structure that's a lot more follow-up, providing them with a feeling of confidence going into their first day of school or first day of work, depending on what role they play, and really setting them up with a building buddy, somebody that they can talk to and know that they're already connected with even before they start. So that is one of our main strategies. The other piece is we're expanding our affinity groups in collaboration with our Director of Systemic Equity and Inclusion around the concept that in the past we had one large affinity group that was for our employees of color in general. We are starting slow expansion of our affinity groups where it's breaking off into affinity group for our African-American employees. We're looking at some expansion into other racial demographics in our employee groups like Hmong and Latinx employee groups. So those 2 pieces put together are strategies that we're really kind of focusing on the feeling of creating a welcoming environment for the first time somebody steps in, and then support throughout the time they're on our district. On to the evaluation piece, which when you think about evaluation processes, this is really focused on a very logistical piece that we do in our system to provide feedback to our employees. So when I think about the logistical piece of why we didn't hit 100%, obviously there's some part of this that we have to make as streamlined as possible. I think our HRMS work that I was talking about before in Frontline will really help with streamlining evaluations to make it as simple as possible and straightforward for both the employee and the supervisor to make sure it gets finished by June 30th, which is our goal for all of our all of our evaluations for our employees. The piece that we're going to change going into 23-24 is we have to stagger the timelines of when things are due. So one of the things we're working on is we know that in the past, all employee evaluations were due on June 30th, which made it hard for somebody that's supervising an evaluator to understand whether or not that evaluator had all of their evaluations finished. So we're just going to stagger those timelines a little bit, where all employees are due June 30th, minus our managers and evaluators and supervisors, which includes principals to managers to directors, all of those roles. We're going to have them do a month after that. So HR can compile whether or not employees that are supervised and evaluated got their evaluations, and then we can pass that on to the evaluators of our supervisors, managers, and principals. And that can be incorporated into their evaluations, whether or not they hit their own 100% marks of evaluations. And then finally, as far as next steps, the board, we've been talking about this back and forth, but it's just a quick kind of synopsis and summary, is that during the 2023 and 24 school year, the OE4 will be revised to ensure measures in the OE4 are compliance measures. And that means that some of our measures, like the employee engagement survey, isn't really a compliance measure. Do we do a survey? Yes. But the results in the OE4 right now are written more as a results type of measure or meeting of an operational results policy. So that work will continue throughout 2023 and 24. So when we come back in the fall of 2024 to talk about our OE4 as is, there will also most likely be an OR that has some of those results split out into results measures. So that's just something to be aware of, is that we're kind of sunsetting the OE4 as written and as reported in this year. And then we're working on that throughout the 2023-2024 school year. So thanks for your time.